Hello and welcome. This podcast series focuses on all things astrology. Today we will be going over Hellenic Astrology, what it is, and a brief history of the practice. Hellenic Astrology is a traditional form that emerged in what historians call the Hellenic period. This was the period in the Mediterranean after the conquests of Alexander the Great. Some of the most essential regions that Alexander conquered were Mesopotamia and Egypt, where there were two long-standing traditions of astrology. Mesopotamia had developed the zodiac, and the Egyptians developed a concept that would eventually lead to, and was a precursor of, the 12 houses. With the conquering of these two regions, the traditions started to mix and eventually were merged. This new tradition of astrology comes on the scene around the 1st century BCE, likely out of Alexandria, and was especially popular in Egypt. Hellenic astrology was largely practiced by the Roman Empire from around the 1st century BCE to around the 7th century CE. The new tradition was similar to the old one in many ways, but it also brought new things. One of those major new additions was being the fourfold system of Western astrology that modern astrologers take for granted today. The fourfold system includes the planets, the 12 signs of the zodiac, planetary aspects, and the 12 houses. For the longest time, modern astrologers had no real idea how the ancients practiced because the texts that we had were either lost or had not been translated into modern languages. They knew that the tradition went back roughly 2,000 to 3,000 years and consisted of the basics of what we have today. Over the last 20 to 30 years, a number of scholars and astrologers have translated these texts into modern languages. With these new translations, we're able to see how the ancients practiced. We're able to see the similarities to Western astrology, but we were also surprised by the significant differences and techniques. We can now see the creation and rationale behind how the systems work. We now understand why the 12 houses mean what they mean, where the zodiac originated from, and how it got its meaning. One of the differences that scholars have discovered is the idea of sex. This is the idea of splitting the person's chart into day and night segments. A day and night chart introduces interpretive distinctions between people born during the day or night. This is a significant astronomical distinction to make and has major impact on a person's chart. There were also advanced timing techniques, which were known as Time Lord systems. One of the most impressive and powerful ones is a technique called zodiacal releasing. Zodiacal releasing will divide a person's life up into chapters and subsections, much like a book. With this technique, you are able to define when one chapter starts and another ends. As such, zodiacal releasing is pivotal for making predictions for the person's life. Another technique, one that I'll dive deeper to in the future, is the concept of whole sign houses. This is, by far, one of my favorite techniques of ancient astrology. So then, what is it? Whole sign houses are one of the oldest house systems, originating from the Hellenistic period. The sign boundaries also create the house boundaries. This is different from other house systems where the signs and houses don't overlap so evenly. In whole sign houses, each house is divided into 12 equal sections of 30 degrees. Because the signs are also divided into 12 equal sections, no matter what house system you use, the houses and signs line up together. For example, if you were born with 3 degrees Sagittarius as your rising, all of Sagittarius would form your first house. Your second house would begin at 0 degrees Capricorn, and your third house at 0 degrees Aquarius, etc. Ultimately, we can now see how modern Western astrology has gone more in the direction of character analysis and more psychological purposes, whereas ancient astrology is a pure form of predictive astrology and holds the potential to allow astrologers to practice a more advanced form of astrology. The goal for us today is not to stay in the past, but to bring it forward with what we know and use it to make our practice stronger. All right, that's it. That's the episode. Thanks for listening. Hopefully now you have an understanding of the history of Hellenic astrology. If you felt that this podcast was helpful to you in any way, please make sure to like and subscribe. It helps me out, and you'll be notified when new episodes come out. Until next time, bye.